Is raw milk safe to drink?
Well, we've been working for years growing our regenerative farm so we can provide food for ourselves and our family. And a huge part of that is Mina Bobina, our milk cow.
Yeah, she's over there.
Yes, she's over there, turning grass into milk. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, and our friends often ask us, because it's been such a popular topic about raw milk. If it's safe, if you drink it, and what do we think about it, or what do we think is missing from the conversation.
Yeah, and dairy is such a huge part of both Iranian and Doukhobor cultures. I mean, everything. We love cheeses, yogurts, like the fermented yogurt drink. I mean, we use dairy it's our main source of protein, really. So it was a really important part of our farm.
So when we started doing our research into raw milk, we noticed right away that there's a lot of information and there's a lot of opinions on different sides about whether raw milk should be legal or whether it should be illegal, whether it's safe or whether it's dangerous. And it's more about the overall policy and the potential dangers of raw milk. But we didn't find too much discussion about the practical risks of raw milk put in context, like, in comparison with other foods that we consume, and also the impacts that it has on us, like not just, in terms of not having access to raw milk, which is potentially more nutritious, but also about the impact that banning raw milk sale has had on farming operations in Canada over the past, half a century.
Another really important point is the blanket ban of raw milk sales we have here in Canada. So, I mean, if the government makes sale of raw milk illegal, it must have significant risk, and they're just trying to protect us, right?
So yeah, we can start looking into some of the risks.
Yeah.
There are many people, including educated doctors, that go over, many legitimate risks that raw milk could have. When we're talking about just raw milk versus pasteurized milk, it looks like the risks are huge. Often the number that's being quoted is that raw milk is 840 times more dangerous than pasteurized milk.
It's 840 times more likely to cause significant illness. Between 1998 and 2018, raw milk caused over 2,600 illnesses, 228 hospitalizations, and 3 deaths. Recent outbreaks have involved E. coli, salmonella, listeria, and even more scary,
a batch of whole raw milk being voluntarily recalled tonight in California after health officials detected bird flu in a sample sold in stores.
So that must be really worth it, right? If it's 840 times more dangerous, then we should probably not touch it. But then when you start putting this in context, when you're looking at the broader spectrum of the foods that we consume, actually many of the food that we consume are potentially can carry
higher risk.
Yeah. Carry different diseases. So that's why we made this chart, and you can look at this chart and you can see the different, for example, sprouts is way more dangerous than raw milk.
Way higher risk.
Way higher risk, yeah. And so this is like the practical risk based on amounts of serving. So it's not just like the number of occurrences, because raw milk, you can argue that raw milk is illegal, but there's still being sold in different regions around the world, and people are consuming it. And so we have actual data on practical risks. And so when we put this next to other foods, like oysters or raw oysters or
lettuce, I think is
many leafy greens. It's just like, it looks ridiculous. Like the risks are way lower. So then, and even like, especially I like to compare it with alcohol, because, we have like such a huge system of distributing, advertising, marketing alcohol to people. And alcohol is like one of the most dangerous food that you can consume. And like the practical risks of it are huge. So really, when putting in context, it seems like the policy wasn't driven actually by data. There's probably something else going on behind the scene, right?
So if the actual data doesn't prove that the consumption of raw milk has a higher risk to our health, than other foods we consume, then there must be something else behind the banning of sale of raw milk in Canada. So the answer is almost always control. And it's important then to consider the impact of these policies on the dairy industry in Canada over the years. Like this graph illustrates nicely over the past 70 years, the trends of the dairy industry. So we used to have in Canada a lot of smaller dairy farms, 6-cow dairy farms, small farms producing milk. And the trend over time, those decreased, whereas the much larger dairy farms with say 600 head of dairy cattle, increased. So
So the number of dairy farms is decreasing, and then the size of these giant
farms are
is actually
increasing.
So almost 100 times more than what it was in 1940s.
Brings a whole nother set of issues, right? Having these smaller number of large farms. I feel like that's more risk. You're putting your animals more at risk having situations like that.
So for most of the time that we have been consuming dairy, the dairy operation has been distributed across different villages. So lots of people would in their village would share, but the milk wouldn't be distributed in a very large region like now it is. So this trend is concerning because it's bringing our food system into a more and more centralized system, which also means it's much more vulnerable.
Yes, as we've seen in BC a few times now. So, like
with natural disasters.
Exactly.
If there is tariffs or
or again mudslides and your road gets cut off and you have no way of getting your stuff over the mountains, then you're left without food.
Proceed, Lord Rothschild.
Your Majesty, a man consumes 2,000 calories per day. Now, if someone was to come along and offer a good price for half of his nutrition, the world wouldn't consent. Now, in Iran, they harvest the wheat and oats to make their staple food bread. The seeds they use for seeding and some for feeding the livestock. However, for a good food, perhaps we could offer more money. There's nothing left to eat.
This operation reminds one of 1841 and the potato famine. It broke Ireland and brought the people to their knees in desperation.
Iran is not Ireland.
Exactly. But no permission was given to build a railway in Iran due to its proximity to India. Their transport is not trains or cars, but beasts of burden. Now, if we were to buy the grain cheaply in the summer, refuse to sell it, and drive up the price of wheat, they would be forced to eat their livestock in winter. Sir Charles, have we got the power to stop the importation of wheat from India?
Yes, it is, my lord.
Good. Their supply is already running out.
And their herbal medicines will die in the winter.
Very soon, the Iranian people will be silent and desperate.
When nomads have no cattle, they raid and fight amongst themselves.
Exactly. Divide and conquer without even firing a single bullet.
Indeed.
So the regulators want stability in the food supply chain, but by putting these policies, they're actually increasing the risk in events of natural disaster or anything that will actually interrupt the supply chain.
So raw milk has been consumed around the world for over 10,000 years, and the majority of that would have been raw milk, or they would have turned it into things like yogurt or kefir or some other fermented product, cheese.
And either people were living in small villages or they were nomadic people that would move their livestock around with them. But they had developed this really nice harmonic relationship with the animals, and for the most of that time, actually, the evidence shows that the milk that they were consuming, which at that time was normal to consume it raw or turn it into other products, but it was done safely without any problems. So the real problems and all those stories that we hear about huge outbreaks of different disease wasn't just because raw milk, it was the practice of distributing raw milk in highly populated centers with very poor sanitization and cleanliness. So there's like a combination of different things. And there were many other outbreaks of diseases when those movements happened from people moving from those smaller villages into more populated centers. So we had, even water could carry a lot of those diseases. So, we can't, and even nowadays, you have these water advisories once in a while. So if there's a little bit of debris gets into water system of, for example, city, then they will put a boiling advisory, right? For a good reason, because it's potentially
keeps you safe.
Yeah, potentially could carry disease. But doesn't mean you should never drink water, because most of the times it's just fine. Yeah.
You just have to handle it properly.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why, we're not saying everybody should or has to consume raw milk. But it should be up to every adult should have the decision whether they want to or not. If they believe that raw milk is more nutritious for them and has healing properties, then they should have that choice and they should be able to drink it raw. And again, and it's important to know your farmer. That's when knowing your farmer comes in. You should know how their milking practices, know the sanitation of their animals and their health, visit the farms. It's important, especially, the majority of our small farms, with just a few dairy cows, take really good care of them and have really good milking practices. And there is a really good set of procedures set out for people to follow to keep our raw milk healthy and safe.
And there are huge implications on the policies for small farms. So we would like to see the conversation to change a little bit from, whether raw milk should be sold at a grocery store or not. That's really not the issue. You can get your milk at the grocery store, and probably pasteurized milk is a good choice for a grocery store because it's a large distribution system. Lots of things could happen. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't be able to go to your small farmer with a few cows and just buy some raw milk directly that they just milked this morning and look at the cow, maybe even go pet it.
Know
see
its
how
name.
healthy it is.
Know its name.
So it's absolutely crazy how, from our perspective, how this act could be illegal, because this is the most nutritious and healthy food that we could ever get.
And there's so much you can do with it. It's crazy. Again, the cow turns grass into milk. I don't know how you can get any better than that.
So a change in policy to allow small farms to sell raw milk directly, it doesn't mean everybody around will start consuming raw milk.
Exactly.
People could come, buy the raw milk. It means that the small farmers, they don't have to maintain the infrastructure, because everybody has a stove at their home. Everybody could take the milk, take it home, and if they decide they wanted to pasteurize it, they could just pasteurize it at home or turn it into other products, cheese, yogurt, other things. And through that process, any pathogens would be destroyed. And
they should have that choice. So to sum it up, compared to other foods that we eat all the time, raw dairy is not the dangerous enemy that we've been led to think it is. And ultimately, the choice should be up to the consumer and to the individual rather than under government control.
And if we want more resilient food system, we should support policies that enable small farmers to be able to distribute their products. So a really good change, a really good shift in our policy system would be something to allow small farmers to sell raw dairy at the farm without having to process it. And that will enable many small farms across different regions to be able to distribute and raise dairy animals and distribute the milk. And people can just make their own informed decision on what to do with that milk when they take it home.
So I guess a little farm update, or a lot of farm update. It's
been a busy month.
It's been a very busy month, of course, with the transition from winter to spring, and the snow took its time at first, but ended up melting pretty quickly. I think it was just the first day of March. The geese started laying, so that's really exciting. And following them, the the ducks and the turkeys and everybody. So we just have a lot of eggs right now. Everyone wants to be a mom. It's it's good. Yeah, so the birds are just so happy. It's amazing how they've changed from their winter mode to spring. Everyone's just I love it. And yeah, I mean the big one, of course, lambs, which is why I'm a little tired. We're in the middle, I'd say, of lambing. We won't get into that now. We're gonna save that for our next video, and hopefully I have gotten more sleep by then and can articulate things better.
But if you have any lambing questions, send it our way so that we can cover it for the next one.
Yes, yeah. So and hopefully in a week or so, when things calm down, people can come by and cuddle some lambs. We will need to socialize them. So it'll be important.
Yeah. And I mean, it's been the spring energy, lots of kind of cleaning up around, and I got to bottle all the vinegar that I've been leaving in the basement to finish, and then bottled the maple syrup, and got the garden a little bit cleaned up and ready to go. And we planted some King Schferia in the garden. So mushrooms. Yeah. So we're gonna try that this year. You may have heard of it, like planting the mushroom in the garden beds between the paths, on the paths, basically. Mr. Mercy from Mr. Mercy Mushrooms come here, and he got a tour and gave us some advice. So we were so grateful for that.
Yeah, that was awesome.
That was really great. So very eventful month.
Yeah, I can't believe it's already gone by. That's why we just snuck this video out in time. Didn't think it would happen.
Yeah, so stay tuned and subscribe if you want to hear about the lambs or other things.
Yes.
Let us know if other things you want to hear about our adventure on the farm.
Yeah.
And we'll see you in the next video.
See you.
Bye.